And we are back on the Zero Hour. Our last and final guest for the program. I've been looking forward to speaking with Carolyn Fiddler because her blog is very entertaining. Her commentary is very useful on what's happening at the Statehouse level. And if we're talking about the corruption of the political process, then we can't leave the state houses out because the Koch brothers and Alec and those guys, they're very smart about taking control at the state level. Carolyn works for the Atlas Project, which was founded in order to build the institutional memory of the progressive movement and arm the progressive community with historical elections data, sophisticated analysis, real-time updates for all 50 states, and Carolyn tracks all of this. Hey, Carolyn, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You bet. And, I just wanted to catch up with some of the shenanigans at the state level because, we all obsess, or no, I shouldn't say we all, many of us overly obsess, I would say, about what's going on at the federal level, while, as we learned in Wisconsin with Scott Walker and the unions, or Michigan with the governor and the emergency manager laws, which took over the cities, a lot of action, a lot of undermining, in my opinion, of our progressive movement is taking place at the state level. So I appreciate the work you do. And I enjoy the way you put it. So I wanted to just spend a couple minutes going over the events of the past week, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely. And you're exactly right. So many things are happening on the state level that didn't get a lot of attention until Wisconsin kind of burst everyone's bubble in 2011. But just in the past week, Alabama and Mississippi are wrapping up their legislative sessions. And so you might not be surprised to learn that some bad things have come out of there. In Alabama, they've extended the waiting period for abortions from 24 to 48 hours. And in Mississippi, they just enacted a 20-week abortion ban with no exception for rape or incest.
It's so horrible, and yet we're seeing so much of this. I was also struck in your blog about, this one just blew me away. I mean, I'm used to Scott Walker being outrageous, but you wrote that Governor Scott Walker signed a bill allowing election observers to stand as close as 3 feet from where voters register and receive ballots. So what's up with that? So if the Republicans or any other group wants to, Democrats for that matter, I guess, but if any group wants to, accuse me of being a fraud or imply, as they often do with minorities, for example, you don't deserve to be here, they can actually basically pretty much get up in your face if they're in Wisconsin. Is that a fair statement?
3 feet is not a lot of space. It's plenty close enough to intimidate people if that is your goal, I think. It's a really questionable bill that got signed into law, and I'm sure it's going to be challenged in court because I don't know this to be a fact, but I suspect it's probably the closest limit anywhere.
Was that bill by any chance named the Wisconsin State Get All Up in Your Grill Act of 2014? Because it just seems so, 3 feet is not far. Admittedly, I have a heightened need for personal space, as my report card said in preschool, but that's close. And that's intimidation, and it's actually quite ugly when you think about it. You also mentioned that the governor of Maine vetoed 2 bills that had passed both chambers of the legislature unanimously. Isn't he going to be overridden?
Chances are good. It takes I believe, a 2/3 vote in the legislature to override a governor's veto, and with a unanimous vote passing these bills in the first place, I really don't think it's going to be much of an issue, especially since one of them was a bill that would have strengthened child abuse prevention programs in the state. He vetoed that, and then on the same day, he decided that April was going to be Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. So let's just instant replay that, because I don't think people's minds can wrap around that very easily. So Governor Paul LePage vetoed a bill strengthening child abuse prevention programs on the same day that he declared the month of April to be Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. Is that right? It was April Fool's Day, so maybe it was a big joke, only I don't think it was. So, that's exactly what he did, because Paul LePage, he's a really special guy. He's done a lot of really interesting and, frankly, outrageous things in his tenure as governor. So, and for the first couple of years, he actually got away with it because he had Republicans in the legislature and the majority in both chambers. But after 2012, they've been able to stop him. So
See, this is not good stuff, and I mean, these are dislikable people. I mean, that's one of the things that I think you make a good point of. Their values are not the kinds of values we associate with good Americans. And the other thing that just caught my eye in your roundup, Louisiana's ban on cockfighting has loopholes because it makes no reference. It's to game fowls, roosters, or other birds, and at least one person believes that chicken boxing is a legitimate sport, quote unquote. You can't make this stuff up, right? And that he's 15th generation fighting chickens in his district, and that a veteran cockfighter, 53-year veteran, somebody said, God put the fight in the chicken, not man.
It's true. That's something someone said in front of other people in defense. Actually in opposition to this legislation that would close the loophole in the cockfighting ban. I mean, it's weird enough that there was a loophole in the cockfighting ban. But yeah, so these are things that really happen. I mean, state legislatures usually are part-time, and they're full of normal folks who get elected sometimes without anyone noticing. So you just
the normal folks I know don't say things like that. But then again, you're right. I mean, that's representative democracy at work, I guess. But God put the fighting chicken on man. To me, this is a free market right-wing ideology in a nutshell. Because first of all, God didn't put the metal spurs on the chicken that tear them to pieces. God didn't starve them and then throw them at each other in a ring. I mean, I've seen cockfights. They're horrible. And anyway, on that weird note, God put the fighting chicken on man. I'm sorry we didn't have more time. I hope you'll come back, Carolyn Fiddler of the Atlas Project, and talk to us again about action at the state level.
I would love to. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we're going to have to leave it there. Remember, God put the fight in the chicken, not man, but we're going to take the money out of politics. I'm RJ Eskow. Thanks for joining us. This is the Zero Hour.